Hey everyone, it is Mary Hyatt. And for those of you who don't know me very well, I'm excited to spend this time together today to talk about the basics of meditation. So, I am a life and business mindset coach. I work with really successful entrepreneurs to help them create space in their life to live fully alive in body, mind, and soul. And in all the work that I do in coaching, I really bring a sense of just presence, holistic mindfulness into the equation because I believe that if we are going to live a life where we feel fulfilled, where there is joy and happiness and peace and security, we have to really work on our mindset, the thoughts that are in our minds. We have to learn how to experience our emotions and really process through them and kind of get to the other side and ultimately really get intentional about creating and designing a life that will absolutely light you up. So, I am, in addition to being a coach, I am a trained conversational hypnotherapist. I'm also a Kundalini yoga instructor. And so I love kind of getting into the science behind things, the mindset, the intellect, everything that we tend to think of is healthy leadership in our own personal lives and also in our professional lives. But then also, I love bringing in this added element of consciousness, of mindfulness, and which is why, for me, in my own life, in my practice as a coach, I'm always coming back to meditation. So, we're going to be talking about that today. I'm going to walk you through some of the basics of why you need meditation in your life, because I think that a lot of people talk about meditation as something that they utilize. And I know that for me, meditation has been one of those things that I've always thought that I should be doing, that has been on my list, and I could never quite get to it. It felt a little unclear, a little intimidating. I never really felt like I knew exactly what to do, or certainly felt like I didn't have the time to create space for meditation. So I'm hoping that today I can make this so easy and simple that it will be almost effortless for you to implement. And I think you'll walk away feeling empowered and encouraged to sort of like dip your toe into the meditation practice. And if you are somebody who already meditates, I think today will be great for giving you some new insight into different ways of meditating, and certainly just instill confidence that this is something to continue to do. So at the end, after I kind of explain what it is, how to do it, we're going to practice together a guided meditation so that you will be able to experience what this is like. And before we get into that, I'll give you a quick little history of my journey. So if you were to rewind the clock about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, you would have met a very, very different person. And the reason that I do the work that I do today is because of my own personal journey. And so for me, I kind of found myself, I was about 80 pounds heavier than I am now. I was dealing with horrible anxiety, like to the point where it was really challenging for me to leave the house. I was having panic attacks all the time. I also had really intense depression. I was struggling with hormonal imbalances like endometriosis. I was experiencing a lot of physical pain in my body, my back, and my joints. And I was in a marriage that was really not life giving and not fulfilling. And so I kind of met myself after years of numbing a lot of trauma that I had experienced. I found myself in this position of meeting myself at that sort of, as we say in Nashville in the South, like a come to Jesus moment, where it was like I had to choose to get radically honest with the fact that I was not happy, that I was pretending to be living a life that was great and it wasn't. And the fact that I was literally doing everything that I could to self-sabotage, to avoid the real issue, the real pain that was just below the surface. And in that kind of brave act of being honest with myself, I then decided to, even though I didn't know what it looked like or how to do it, trust that I had to sort of begin this process of self-development, of self-discovery, learning about who I was, because I had been playing this role. I had been married for many years, and from the surface, you would have thought I was fine. And I had to start getting familiar with myself for maybe the very first time in my adult life. So I started reading books like Daring Greatly by Brene Brown, and really beginning to peel back these layers one by one by one of like, oh my gosh, this is who I really am. And I was terrified. It was so scary to think about leading with my true self, using my voice to have a preference, to have an opinion, to decide maybe what I could do with my life. It was terrifying. And I had realized in the process of avoiding who I was, of being honest with my desires, my hopes, my dreams, I had buried all these emotions inside of my physical body. And what was fascinating, people ask me all the time, well, how did you lose the weight? How did you make this huge transformation? And so much of it was mindset. Like I didn't, radically change a whole lot about what I was doing externally, but I started here. I started with my mind. I started thinking new thoughts, affirming new truths in my life that eventually helped to create more confidence, more excitement for life. It was generating different feelings in my anxiety and depression. These thoughts were life-giving. And out of that, it was like I wanted then to love my body in a way that was consistent with this new way of defining who I was. And so then eventually it did look like eating more nourishing foods and moving my body. But it was a long process before that ever really happened. And year after year of devoting myself to really getting to know my thoughts, changing them in a way that was more empowering, creating a new narrative for my life, eventually I walked into a new future. And I started doing this work with other people, and now am just loving the life that I have created, and am excited about the life that I am still creating. And so I want to show you a little window into that process, just a little bit, piece by piece. So let's kind of slow down then and talk about meditation. And like I said, meditation oftentimes can feel really overwhelming, really just kind of scary. And I think that first and foremost, we have to understand that right now, we have just, come off a crazy year. And a lot of what happened was being in survival mode, being in this place where it was all about reaction, kind of handling all these things that are thrown at us. And this is, no different really than everyday life when you have normal stressors, if you work at a job, if you have children, if you're in a relationship, if you're working on your relationship with your body. There are all these different kind of balls in the air that we're constantly trying to juggle. And it's overwhelming. It is exhausting. And especially you throw in the added element of a pandemic and all the changes and the grief that that brings. All of a sudden, our emotional well-being, our physical well-being is incredibly taxed. And we are, like I like to say, running on fifth gear with the pedal like all the way down, gas pedal all the way down. And our nervous systems right now are on overdrive. It's like being in the red constantly. And so our brain goes to a place that is the survival brain. It is the fight, flight, or flee part of our brain, the lizard part of our brain that isn't really thinking about staying super conscious or thinking about how we're responding. It's just these quick kind of responses that are based out of a survival instinct. And I just want to bring some normalness to this for just a second, because none of us have gone through this before. Like, let's just admit the fact that none of us know what we're doing. Like, we're all kind of feeling our way through this, trying to figure out how to process what's happening, where we land on everything, not to mention just the collective energy is intense. And I think that, hopefully, fingers crossed, it will begin to kind of regulate a little bit more. But when that's in the air collectively, it's not just like something that you're personally dealing with, but this is not only just America, this is worldwide. And so you've got this energy that's in the air, like it's palpable. You can feel it, that is weighing on us and our nervous systems. And so if we aren't taking a moment to ground, to center, to breathe, to really allow ourselves to sort of check in with how we're doing, how are we feeling, to slow it down, to think about how we want to respond, then we are going to get swept up in, and maybe you've already felt like this was the case, but we get swept up in this really just intense, flighty, kind of manic energy. Or we get super depressed and we hide, we avoid, we disassociate, we isolate. So there's kind of like two pendulum swings here. It's either manic, hyper control, right? If we're trying to feel a sense of safety or security, the best way to get that when we're unconscious is to start controlling. So we overwork, we overwork out, we hyper psycho plan our meals, and we want to account for everything so that we feel safe. Or we feel like we just don't have any motivation. We can't get up. We don't want to move our bodies. We get to the place where we're checked out. We stop reaching out to friends or to family, and it just feels sort of like we're trudging through mud. Either way, those are both coping strategies for the intensity that's going on, and they're not necessarily conscious coping. It's like that default way that we go to in times of stress. I know for me, it was a lot of overeating, it was a lot of over drinking. And then I kind of went to the pendulum swing and I was really restrictive. And that happens when we don't pause and check in intuitively with ourselves. So meditation is a way to do that. Meditation, number one, slows down the mind. So if you can imagine, if that pedal is all the way down on fifth gear, and it's almost like hyper, like looking for the threat, what's next, kind of fritzing out and burning out and just draining our energy. Meditation offers that pause to slow the brain down. And we have to understand a little bit about how the brain works to understand why this is so valuable. So I'm going to get like just a touch sciencey here for a second. But essentially, 95% of the thoughts that we think on a daily basis are the thoughts that we have thought yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before and the day before. Like throughout our whole past, typically, they're the same variations of the same thoughts every day. Now, it's important to understand that because of our thinking, it generates how we feel. So our thoughts lead to an emotion, lead to a feeling. So for example, if I'm out in the world and I think to myself, we're never going to get through this, or everyone is an enemy, or this is going to destroy my life. Or if I think other thoughts like, I'm ugly, I'm gross, I'm disgusting, I'm not enough, I'll never be able to do this. That's great for them, but not great for me. All of those thoughts create an emotion. So if I'm thinking this is never going to end, that leads to stress, or to panic or to overwhelm. If I think that I am gross and disgusting, and that's the story that I'm telling myself, those are the thoughts that I'm thinking when I look at my body in the mirror, then the emotion is disgust. The emotion is shame. The emotion is embarrassment. And based out of how we feel. So when we experience fear or anxiety or stress or shame, it leads to a certain action or inaction. It creates a behavior. It starts putting something into action. So if I feel ashamed, for example, if I look at my body and I feel ashamed and I think to myself, the thought is, I'm gross and disgusting, that leads to shame, then I'm not going to show up in the world. I'm going to hide. I'm not going to get on camera. I maybe won't grow my business. I won't go out on dates. Whatever that is, I start to isolate. That's the action that it generates based on being ashamed, based on the emotion. And then the result is kind of the last step of the process. And so based out of what I'm doing, my action, so not going on the date, not, growing my business, it leads to a result, which would be something like, I'm not in a relationship. My business isn't growing, whatever that might be. So it's really important to understand that when 95% of our thoughts are unconscious, meaning we're not aware what we're thinking, it's just on automatic, autopilot. The same thoughts that we had yesterday, today, and yesterday, and yesterday, and yesterday, and yesterday, all the way back, all those sets of thoughts are creating emotions that then lead to particular actions that are creating the exact same result over and over and over again. So if the result is you can't lose weight, if the result is you're living paycheck to paycheck, if the result is you have one toxic relationship after another, if the result is you can never get ahead in your business, that started from a thought. So meditation gives us the opportunity to create a new neurological pathway, a new thought system that generates a new emotion that leads to new action that gives us a new result. Like, yay, a new result, ultimately a new life. So when you look at the power of change and when you look at what people do to create transformation in their life, what they're doing is they're starting to change their thoughts. They're bringing these 95% of their thoughts that are unconscious up to their conscious awareness. And they're looking at them and they're deciding, do I want to continue to think that? If I continue to think that, is that going to give me what I want in my life? And if the answer is no, then I can begin to rewrite, change the story, change the interpretation, create a new meaning in my brain. And that's what meditation does, is it slows us down enough to become aware of these unconscious thoughts so that we can essentially reprogram our mind to better thinking thoughts that lead and generate better emotions that create new behaviors that give us a new life. That's the exciting part. So it's not that like meditation is just here because it feels good. It's actually inviting us to create a whole new state of being, a whole new us, a whole new life. The other thing that meditation does is that it calms the nervous system. So when our brains are in this high frequency of beta, the literal brain wave of beta, which is sort of that like high pitched, manic, kind of overly stressed energy, which is where a lot of people live. It's that survival brain. It allows our brain wave to, in a sense, downshift into a lower gear, and it slows everything down. And when our nervous system begins to calm down, that rest, that digest, that ability to process our emotions, we don't end up stuck because we have like a better focus when our nervous system calms down, because all of a sudden our executive functioning comes back online. We move from the back of the brain into this frontal lobe, which is how our hormones become balanced, how we process emotions. It's responsible for all of our neurotransmitters. And so getting that part of the brain online is really important. And one way that we can shift from survival to kind of maintenance and creation is through meditation. It gets us into a different brainwave. There's a lot of science on this. I won't go into all of the specifics on that, but it's pretty cool to see. And you can literally measure through a brain scan what happens through meditation. It shifts us out of that high beta brain into a lower brainwave. And it regulates our nervous system. So we aren't using so much cortisol or draining our adrenals of their life force, which gives us energy. All of a sudden, our body can come back to homeostasis. We can begin to balance our cells, our genes. It's really amazing. And then I think the third benefit, and lastly, meditation helps us to connect to our bodies. And for anyone who is on a journey with learning how to accept and love their bodies more, to begin to partner with their bodies, meditation to me is a really powerful tool in your self-development toolbox to be able to do this. So my personal belief and what the work that I do, the work that I teach is really helping women to get back into their bodies, because I believe that our bodies have the answer. So often we look at our bodies as the enemy. We want to control it. We want to shrink it. We want to make sure that it does exactly what we need to do. But our bodies contain so much wisdom. And so throughout my journey, I've really had to learn how to begin to partner with my body, begin to see my body as an ally, not an enemy, and really listen to all the things that she was telling me. So, for example, anytime that we're feeling stressed or anxious, we can feel that in our body. It feels like fluttering in the chest or that nausea in our belly. You know, people have said that it's like the stress can feel oftentimes like an elephant is sitting on your chest. It's hard to breathe. Everything feels tight and constricted. So when we pause and slow down in meditation, we begin to consciously breathe and we get quiet enough, we can hear those signals of the body. We can begin to know if our bodies are in pain and why that might be. We can begin to hear if we're hungry or if we're full. Like that process alone, being able to register hunger and fullness is so vital. But we can only do that when we're connected to our body. Otherwise, we're just eating so fast and we're not conscious. All of a sudden, we're feeling stuffed. We've coped with food. But when we meditate, we drop into the language of the body. There's this subtlety there. And we begin to sense the sensations of the body. We begin to feel emotion in our physical body. And part of the gift of meditation is learning how to process through our emotions so that it doesn't get stuffed and we don't bury our emotions. We can process them, move through them in real time, and then it's gone. It's like it's out of the physical body. So when we meditate, we connect with our intuition. We connect with our emotions, how they feel in the body. We have an opportunity to ask ourselves, what do I need? One of the things that I love more than anything is that moment where we say, what do I need? And we can listen internally to our wisdom. We can listen to spirit. We can listen to our intuition to connect with, what do I need? It gives us that beautiful sacred pause. So I think that to me, the reason I meditate regularly is because meditation is my chance, and I hope that it will become your chance to let everything that has been stored, built up, suppressed, have space to move through you. Because when we stuff things, when we ignore, when we deny, when we avoid how we're feeling, those emotions don't go away. They get stored and trapped in our energetic body. They get stored in the actual physical, like tissues and fascia of our muscles that can generate dis-ease, that can generate all kinds of physical complications, including chronic pain and all kinds of things, panic attacks. And so to me, meditation is my way of opening the door to let my emotions flow through me instead of them getting trapped in the body and coming out sideways later. Because in my highest best self, I don't want to be living a life that's just so reactive and unconscious that I'm snapping at people, I'm burning myself out, I'm people pleasing, I'm overcommitting, I'm exhausted all the time. Like that isn't living fully alive to me. That's surviving. And so meditation is that check-in, that pause, and ultimately opportunity for us to rewrite those thoughts, to rewrite the narrative, to kind of take a moment to go, oh, I'm going to become aware of what is. All the thoughts that are bubbling up, all the emotions that I'm feeling. And my encouragement is that you do this, and I'll kind of walk you through a process in our meditation together. But my encouragement is to really meet whatever is here with tenderness, with compassion, releasing the judgment. Because a lot of times we sit in meditation and we feel like all of a sudden we have to do it perfectly. If we're experiencing any negative emotion, we start to judge ourselves. We want to hurry up through it. We want to fix it. We want to tame it. We want to like get rid of it. But I think there's something so generous about the present moment when we can just sit with what's here with real deep, unconditional loving, allowing what is here to just be here. So if I'm feeling this morning like grief or anger or resentment, that I could just let that be, that I don't have to hurry through it, but I can just first acknowledge, like, wow, I'm holding this in my body. Now I know that any emotion that I'm feeling starts with a thought. So I must have been thinking something that caused for me to feel this way, but I can just be in it. I can just sit in it. I can just acknowledge. The first step to any change is just the awareness of what is, the consciousness of what's here right now before I have to go and change anything. Because so much of our lives are curating and fixing and shape shifting and maximizing. Meditation gives us the opportunity to just be. It's like this this exhale. It is really lovely to experience the exhale, to experience this moment with ourselves without having to try or do anything, but we can just hang. We can just hang with ourselves for a moment. And it's like, can I create space for what's here? Can I tolerate the discomfort that I'm feeling in my body, the anxiousness, the fact that I want to hurry up through this meditation, the fact that maybe my mind begins to drift and starts thinking about 1.5 million other things? Can I just sit with and be okay with all of that? It's really like learning self-acceptance on the deepest level, and then beginning to connect with your spirit, beginning to connect with God, the universe, your higher power, however you choose to interpret it, and to really like go vertical, go up before we go out into our day. It's that pause, that sacred pause. We go up, we get into alignment. We get that download. We hear the messages from spirit, from source, from our intuition before we run into action. It creates that little moment before we hop into our day to center, to ground, and then to choose, how do I want to feel today? How do I want to go through this day? How do I want to show up? What are some new ways I could be thinking that create new emotion? That's our point of power. That is our point of control. When we can slow it down enough to design our thinking, to create new thoughts, that eventually lead to new emotions, that lead to new behaviors, that create a new life. That is our point of control. We can't control what happens to us, but we can choose how we meet it, how we interpret it. And that's really empowering. So that to me is the gift of meditation. Now, I will say that there are a million different types of meditation. So what I love about this is that you can experiment a little bit and find meditation that you love. Find a meditation that fits with you. So there are breathing meditations where all you're doing is focusing on your breath, inviting yourself again into that present moment, kind of downshifting your nervous system, regulating all of that goodness physically and emotionally before you go out into your day. So that could look like a 4-part segmented breath where you go inhale for a certain amount of counts, and then you exhale a certain amount of counts. So a great, easy one to practice with is inhaling on 4, exhale on 4, and you just repeat 4 in and 4 out over and over again for, let's say, 10 minutes. There are visualization meditations, which I'm going to guide you through here in a minute. And those are my favorite. I love guided meditations because it gives my brain something to focus on. It is great for beginners, and it's an opportunity for you to kind of specifically focus on a particular topic in your life. So for example, if I really want to work on moving past something emotionally, thinking about my future self that is full of life, that feels strong and athletic and healthy and vibrant and radiant, I want to visualize that future self. So I do a lot of future self meditations where I sit, I have an initial check in with myself, and then I begin to go to work using my imagination to think about who I want to become, who I am becoming, starting to feel into my future, getting excited, feeling appreciation and gratitude in advance for who I'm stepping into being. And there's all different kinds of resources for guided meditation. Headspace is a great app on your phone. I love Headspace. And they're short, like 10-minute meditations. I have some beautiful guided meditations on YouTube that you can follow that are all guided. They're all using visualization. And honestly, if you just Google, you're going to find more than you could ever possibly need. But this is where you get to kind of decide who you vibe with, who really works with your energy. And they can be short. Most of my meditations are 15 minutes, which I love. It's like so doable. And then you have walking meditations, you have silent meditations, you have movement meditation, mantra meditation. Again, there's a lot of different options out there. And I'm going to leave it up to you. If you feel like this is something you want to explore, this becomes your journey. This is like this conversation you and I are having is the very basic beginning of this whole world we know as meditation. So this is your invitation to do a little bit of your own research and to begin to try some things out to see what fits for you. Real quickly, before we get into our guided meditation, I want to offer you, though, a little guidance on starting a practice because I have taught this a lot. I've worked through this a lot. I work through it with my one-on-one clients, even inside of my membership that I offer. I see a lot of common mistakes that are made. And I sort of narrowed it down to 10 mistakes that people make when they meditate that I want to briefly highlight so that you can avoid these mistakes. And then I'm going to invite you into a guided meditation. Okay. So the first mistake that I see that people make is they think they should know how to do this already, which ends up being why they don't do it. That somehow they see this talked about on TV or Instagram or magazines or podcasts, and people talk about it generally. And so it's sort of like, oh my gosh, everybody has this secret knowledge that somehow I don't know, and I'm supposed to know how to do it. And of course, that doesn't feel good, to feel like we're kind of dumb. And so typically we will avoid the thing that we think we should already know. So that's the first mistake that people make. And let me just say, you're not supposed to know how to do this unless you were brought up in Eastern culture or had very, progressive parents. If you're like me and you were raised in the church and in Western culture, we aren't given a blueprint for this. We aren't taught how to meditate. We don't even know the benefits of it. So give yourself permission to be the student, to learn, to start at the very beginning, because that's where anything starts, is the beginning. The second mistake that I see people make in meditation is that they think it has to be silent. So that can feel really intimidating, because oftentimes, if you've ever practiced it before, you sit down and there's all these thoughts that happen. And you go, oh my God, I'm doing it wrong. I have to be silent. So that's where I say, if silent meditation doesn't work for you, it's not my favorite, go to something like a guided meditation or a breathwork meditation or a mantra or movement meditation. There's a lot of different forms. It doesn't have to be silent. The third mistake I see people make is that they try to meditate lying down, like before they go to bed. And when we lie down, our body immediately thinks it's time to go to sleep. So I encourage people always to sit upright in a cross-legged position so that their spine is nice and straight and that they are alert. And I mean, obviously it's fine if you fall asleep every now and again, but we really want to work on bringing our awareness to this present moment as much as we can and to be really conscious. So I encourage people to sit up, even on a chair, on a couch, on the floor with a cushion, but not to lie down. The fourth, and this kind of goes right in line with this, is that they practice when they're sleepy. And this is like a recipe for disaster, because again, meditation is going to bring everything down, calm everything down, and you're just going to fall asleep. So my favorite time is to do this in the morning. I love meditating in the morning before anything else, because this is my time with me. My time to go vertical before I go horizontal, my time to check in, to create that sacred pause. And it just gives me a beautiful start to the day. So I encourage you to think about creating a little bit of space in the morning for meditation. The fifth mistake that I see people make is that they have too many props in their meditation, like candles, and they have to have an altar, they have to have everything set up, and they want to have an environment that's perfect. The way that I learned to meditate was from a friend of mine. We meditated outside, and I had 2 dogs at the time, and they were all over me. They were like trying to lay on me, they were licking me. And I think it's really important to learn how to meditate inside of distractions. It doesn't have to be a perfect environment that's beautiful and curated and set up and just right. It can really be you like sitting in the parking lot. It could be you in a chair. It can be you on a closet floor. It can be you in the bathtub. It literally can be anywhere. And the more that we can kind of go, I can meditate in any environment, the more it's going to invite us into doing it. The sixth mistake that I see people make is that they quit when they get distracted. So when you are creating new neural pathways and new thoughts, your physical body inside, because this is new, and it really likes the old way of thinking, the old habitual way of being, literally from a neurological standpoint, your body is going to be raging inside. It's hard to sit still at first. It's hard to take an uncontrolled mind and bring it into focus. And so oftentimes people will get distracted. They'll pick up their phone, they'll be on to the next thing, and they'll be done. But meditation is committing to a specific amount of time. And then when you get distracted, bringing your breath back here to the present moment, feeling your body breathe, coming back, coming back, coming back. Even when your body is raging, it's almost like you're saying to it, stay. And you're practicing staying, just like you would if you were training a dog. You're practicing training your brain. So don't stop when you get distracted, just come back. The seventh mistake I see people make is that they try to commit to too big of a commitment. So they say, all right, I'm going to start with an hour of meditation, for example. You can do micro meditation at the beginning. I think it's really important to start with something that's realistic, even if that's 3 minutes of breathing. Even if that's 10 minutes of meditating to a couple different songs or listening to a 10-minute guided meditation, let that be enough at the beginning. The whole point is to get started, not to set yourself up to an idealistic way of meditating that isn't attainable and just you aren't going to create space for. So you don't have to make it too big of a commitment. The eighth mistake that I see people make is that they try to go at it alone. Again, they sit there, they try to figure out how to do it themselves. Y'all utilize the resources, utilize apps, utilize my guided meditations, utilize other people's guided meditations. You do not have to be doing this by yourself. The ninth mistake that people make in meditation is that they think instead of feel. Part of meditation is really getting into the feeling state. So you don't have to cognitively be narrating the whole process. You can just feel into it, and you'll get better at this through the consistency of practice, but you can feel into it. What does it feel like in your body? Really like getting into the sensations of the physical body, to me, is much more powerful than having to think about what you're doing. And then lastly, the 10th mistake that I see people make is that they are inconsistent. So they meditate a little bit and then they stop, and then they meditate one day and then they stop. It's better if you like reduce the amount of time, but you're consistent. So that is more helpful. The more consistently, like you're training your brain, for example, to learn a new language, like if you were going to learn Spanish, you would obviously have to review those flashcards every single day before your brain began to memorize the vocabulary, and before you started to dream in Spanish. You every day you're saying out your grammar, or you're listening to Spanish radio or watching Spanish YouTube. The more that you can get that Spanish in your brain, the quicker your brain is going to learn that. And it comes through the consistency. Like, you'll never learn Spanish if you practice every once in a while. So same thing with meditation. When you're creating new neural pathways, new thoughts, new thinking that create new emotions, that create new behavior, that give you a new life, you really do have to do it consistently to experience the effects. And every day we're bombarded with stress and overwhelm and decision fatigue and all the things. So every day we need to meditate. And again, it's not a should, it's like a gift to yourself to have that sacred pause. So now I want to practice this with you and guide you through a pretty short meditation, but hopefully I will also share in the resources some links to meditations that are a little bit longer. But this will give you an idea of what it's like to sit inside of a guided meditation. So I want to invite you to find a comfortable seat. So if you want to pause this and come back in a second, get situated, that's great. If you're already sitting, beautiful. Roll the shoulders down and back. Tuck the chin slightly, opening up the back of the neck. Soften the eyelids down, close the eyes. Allow the hands to gently rest in the lap. And let's begin to take a nice deep inhale through the nose. Exhaling through the mouth. Again, in. Exhale. Inhaling through the nose. Exhaling through the mouth. And now beginning to breathe in and out of the nose. Nostril breathing. And begin to slow the breath down. So really take your time on the inhale. Slowly control the exhale. And as you breathe, just invite yourself into the present moment. So notice what you hear. Even the distant noises. Notice what you smell. taking a moment to feel as you inhale that belly rise, as the lungs fill up with air. And as you exhale, notice how the belly button pulls into the spine, pressing all of the air out of the lungs. Just noticing that subtle, gentle pumping sensation at the navel. It's already occurring. We're just bringing awareness to what's here. Just breathing nice and slow. Allowing your awareness to drop from the head into the heart. And just begin now to bring the awareness to the heart center, right behind the breastbone. Beginning to breathe in and out of the heart now. So as you inhale, like an accordion that stretches open, allow the heart to lift, stretch out to the sides, beyond the shoulders. And then as you soften, exhale, allow that accordion-like experience to come back to the center, dropping the chest. Inhaling, lifting, expanding, and opening. Exhale, softening, dropping. Sort of like you're riding this wave of in and out. And take your time with this, nice and slow. This beautiful place of unconditional loving. Allowing just this breath to be enough. You might begin to observe any dialogue, any thoughts that you're having without grasping on or attaching to them. We're just noticing, like, oh, isn't that interesting? This thought is coming up, or I'm thinking about this. And then bringing the awareness back to the breath, opening and closing that heart, expanding and contracting. Beautiful. You're doing so good. We're just here for a couple more minutes. We're practicing what it's like to be present with ourselves, to be still, to be conscious. And so taking a moment within this awareness to notice how you feel, what's been bubbling below the surface. See if you can name sort of the top emotion that's asking for some attention right now. What do you feel? How are you feeling? Seeing if you can really name the emotion instead of thinking about the emotion. What is it? What emotion is it? And now, without needing to fix it or change it, pausing judgment or criticism, seeing if you can just allow this emotion to be in your awareness. It's already here. We're just observing, noticing. See that as you exhale, you can just open and allow this emotion to be here a little more, creating space. Can you feel this emotion now? You might notice some resistance, which is okay. Just soften. See if you can just let yourself be. You might begin to notice what this emotion feels like in the body as a sensation. Where is it? Is it in your heart or your stomach, your back, your face, your throat? Where do you feel this emotion in the body? There's no wrong answer. You can't get it wrong. We're just letting our intuition guide. And then noticing, what does it feel like? Warm or cool? Heavy, expansive, tingling, nausea, tightness, clenching, pain. Again, no judgment, just observing. And now taking the left hand, place it on the heart, resting it at the heart center. Taking a moment to offer yourself some love, some tenderness or kindness. You might whisper to yourself, I see you. I hear you. Like a dear friend bringing in support and love, just loving on yourself for a moment. I hear you. I see you. You're okay. And keeping the hand on the heart, taking a moment to ask yourself, what do I need? What do I need? And really pausing to listen to that wisdom within. What do I need? Beautiful. And now just taking a moment to practice feeling gratitude for this moment, for the newness of now, for your ability to pause and to feel, to experiment. You might just repeat in your mind, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the part of yourself that showed up today. Thank you. Who's doing this work? So big, so amazing. Gratitude. Thank you. 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 You might even allow yourself to smile, inviting yourself to feel this gratitude even more. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Allowing yourself now to inhale, dropping the hand down. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale. Exhale. Bringing the awareness to your body in your seat, feeling the space around you again. And when you're ready, slowly coming back, opening your eyes when you're ready. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Just being present with yourself for that moment, feeling into the present and meeting yourself. And that's just one example of meditation practices that exist out there, that check-in, There's so many more. It's just like so rich. But you can see how just in that, couple minutes, we shifted the energy. We created new awareness. We met ourselves. We loved on ourselves. It's beautiful. So I know that today was a quick overview of meditation. I know you might have a lot of questions. I know that, there's a lot here. And I invite you to message me. You can find all of my details at maryhyatt.com. Of course, connect with me there on Instagram or Facebook. There's even an option to text me, and it's really me. I really communicate over text. But if you're curious about any of this or about coaching or my membership, go take a look at maryhyatt.com. I love this work. I'm excited that you are embarking on this part of your journey, that you're even considering it, that you even watched the video to this point. I think is really a testament of the way in which you are really showing up for yourself. And I admire that. I acknowledge that in you. And I'm excited for what this is about to create and birth inside of you. So thank you for your attentiveness, for your energy, sending you guys so much love and light. And I hope to see you soon. Bye.